Alright, fanboys and fangirls, we got a big Apple episode for you today. I do not know which one to make the main story, so I'm just gonna go with the one that has the most news, and that is, of course, the 2024 MacBooks, in particular, the MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, and even iPad Pro. We'll figure out the naming of this episode, but we got a lot of news to talk about with those products in the future, and also we have some updates on the AirPod Max 2, and lastly, there's also an update in regards to Apple allowing third-party services, app stores, on the App Store. This will probably change the way the iPhone goes. All that on today's episode, so let's get it going. So the first story, the main story, the MacBook. Now, this story does have quite a bit going on right now, so this one's gonna be a little hard to name in the episode. But for the purposes of the continuity of the story, let's kind of start it up with the MacBook Air. Now, as you know, Apple recently refreshed the MacBook Air with a brand new redesign along with MagSafe and also a different design. And also it did come in that midnight color, which I actually like a lot. I wish that they would bring midnight over to the Pro and Pro Max models, but I digress. But according to Ross Young, it seems that Apple has got something up their wing, and it looks like it's not only going to be a brand new MacBook Air, but a bigger model, but there's also more than we're being told. According to Ross Young, he claimed that a 15.5-inch MacBook Air is in the works, and it could be launched as soon as the spring of 2023. Ross goes into explanation saying that this 15.5-inch MacBook Air will be sized between the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro models, and it will be the largest MacBook Air to date. The current model measures at 13.6, whereas the 15.5 was rumored to be around 15.2 inches. So, extra little bit of room, whatever. According to Ross, he also goes on and says that it will have a larger force trackpad, the keyboard with function keys, it will also have the MagSafe charging port, upgraded speakers, a 1080p camera, and there is a report saying that this MacBook Air will be featured with the M2 or the M2 Pro chip option. Although Ross does go on to say that that might not be the case, as they want to reserve the Pro and Max and Ultra chips for the more higher end products. And if I'm being honest here, a MacBook Air with no thermal cooling of any kind is not going to survive well with the Max and Ultra chip. So I don't see that happening anywhere, even Pro. But Ross did also go on and add more information to another MacBook coming in 2024 along with a new iPad Pro. Now, we have been hearing reports that Apple was going to introduce mini LEDs to the 11-inch and that the 12.9-inch was going to get an upgrade in the mini LED experience. But we never got that, and then there's so many conflicting reports saying that Apple's gonna do it this year, 2023 coming, and now, according to Ross Young, he even goes on and says that not only will Apple introduce a trio of new products in OLED, but that the trio of products, according to his predictions, will be the 11-inch iPad Pro, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and a new version of the MacBook Air. Now, hold on just a second. Let's before we talk about what else he said, I have a problem with this one. Why would it be a MacBook Air getting OLED? If there's a product that doesn't need OLED or is the last one to get OLED, it's the MacBook Air. Why would the MacBook Air, the cheapest Mac that you could buy, why would that one get OLED? I'm sorry, but I don't see that being possible, especially if they're going to be making a bigger MacBook Air. There are reports saying that it might go with mini LED, but only at 60 Hertz. We don't know. So I'm not going to bet my money that it's going to be a MacBook Air. I'll probably say a MacBook Pro. But anyway, moving on. According to Ross, it does say that yes, Apple wants to transition into using OLED technology, as while mini LEDs have done an absolutely tremendous job, they haven't reached the nit brightness that they want, and also seeing as how Samsung and other manufacturers have adapted OLED into the tablet line, which I think is a great thing to have, and you're paying premium dollars. It makes all the sense to want to do that. And I do think that while it adds a little bit of durability with question, I don't see it being a problem. I actually see it being great if Apple can add OLED into their iPads. Then going back to the MacBook, he does claim that yes, Apple does want to transition into OLED where all their products will have an OLED lineup, and then of course mini LEDs will take the place of LCDs once they get the cost down. So to wrap all this news up into one bow, all I can say is for the new MacBook Air, if they make a bigger model, it probably will be good because you do give consumers a new size option. If you want the MacBook Air, but you don't want the small version, but you want a bigger computer, I'm sure that's actually a more pleasable option, so I'm not mad about that. But an OLED MacBook Air, I'm sorry, I don't see that. I see a MacBook Pro with OLED, that's just that. But in regards to OLED coming to the iPad Pros, absolutely makes total sense, not arguing that. So that's that whole story. Now let's talk about the AirPod Max 2. Alrighty, the next story we're hearing is the AirPod Max 2. Now I stopped talking about the AirPod Max 2 because there really wasn't anything to talk about. We've already heard that Apple is not making an AirPod Max 2 model, that they're still focusing on the original, and that if they were to do it, it would be in 2024. But there are reports now coming out, according to Mr. Mark Gurman, who I will never pay a dime for his news outlet. So thank you to Mac Rumor for breaking everything down, because seriously, why would I pay anything for a news outlet? I'm sorry, that's just not me. But anyway, according to Mark Gurman, the AirPod Max are officially 2 years old, but Apple is preparing its newest revival of these headphones for the next couple of years, which will probably be the end of 2023 and into 2024. According to Gurman, he claims that the AirPod Max are in the work, but that they are not confirmed to be going into production until later in 2023. He claims that the newest features coming will be USB-C and launched by, of course, 2024. Beyond that, we don't have any concrete evidence to support that it will have an IP rating. We also don't have any information to satisfy an upgrade in the build quality, but we do know that Apple is reportedly going to be introducing gesture-based motions. It seems that that is something that is reported. We've seen patents that Apple wanted to do, but that because they couldn't get it to work in time for the launch of the first one, they ended up scrapping it. But it seems that they're going to be bringing gestures to the AirPod Max 2. On top of that, they will also be reportedly making better battery life. USB-C, as I mentioned before, we don't know about an IP rating, so we're gonna have to hold off on that. But then lastly, to talk about the originals just for a moment, there is reports saying that Apple is considering a color refresh. They will add more colors to the lineup. There will be purple and other flavors of the rainbow, probably around the springtime, reportedly. So to the AirPod Max news, I actually for one would upgrade if that's the route that they're going in. If they got a brand new AirPod Max with USB-C, new colors, on top of everything that I talked about, absolutely sign me up. Because I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I have used Bose and Sony's, and as great as they sound and as reliable as they have been, I'm sorry, but the AirPods Max are actually on another level. Because for $550, I expected them to sound at $550 sounds. And let me tell you something, they delivered. They beat out Sony and Bose in some areas, but that's opinion based. And of course, I have plenty of other reviews to cover. But anyway, that's the AirPod Max 2. Now let's talk about the App Store situation. All right, so this is gonna be the last story, then we're gonna wrap it up. But if you guys haven't heard over the weekend, Apple is again going to start complying with EU regulations, and that they will be supporting third-party side launchers and other app stores onto their platform in accordance to the EU agreements. You see, the EU has been on top of Apple, forcing them to open their barriers, setting regulations, and doing all these things, pretty much making it possible for Apple to be Apple. And while this is a lot of great news for people that have wanted this, there are some other people that are opposed to this. And while I'm not opposed heavily, there is one small area that I have a problem with, and that will be the optimization going forward. Because while this is great that we can have third-party app stores and third-party users be able to sell their own stuff and use it, I just find it a little weird now that developers will not have to worry about prioritizing separate app developments, that it's just gonna be all one, which you think is a good thing, but sometimes it doesn't turn out the best. Look at the difference from Instagram on the App Store and then Instagram on the Galaxy Store. There's a huge difference in gesture, motion-based, etc. but it does actually give a lot of people viable options if you want to go the third-party route to download your apps and other services. But we all know why this is being done. It's because of Apple's 30% tax. And I highly recommend all of you please watch John Prosser's video of his latest episode of Front Page Tech talking about this in more detail, because I absolutely agree with him. It's really unfair that everybody likes to trash Apple for their taxes. They like to trash Apple for the 30% that they put on the App Store when Apple did everything to supply it. But if you look at if you look at services like YouTube, who pull 45% of ad revenue of money that we make for making videos just for posting our services, they take 45% of the ad revenue generated. We keep 55, they get 45. We also see 35% cuts also coming from several other areas, and nobody talks about them, but they only want to talk about Apple. And that's the one part of the argument that I have to agree on. I find it a little unfair that everybody trashes Apple, but when Google's taken 45% of ad revenue money and the content creators only keep 55, which does seem a little fair, I just find it weird that you can go on Apple for developers, but content creators only get 55 and they're taking 45%. I'm just saying. So bottom line, definitely watch John Prosser's video. It does a better job talking about this subject. And the only thing I can say to this is I am actually not opposed to it, but I think I'm starting not to like the government intervening in a company's decision on what they should and shouldn't do. I'm starting to feel that way. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse for others, but for me, I don't like it. But you know what? If it does make the product better, who knows? And that's for today's episode of Technoid. Now guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit the like button. If you disliked the video, you can hit the dislike button. That helps circulate my videos as well. Anyway guys, we're gonna break these videos down into some shorts. We're gonna make some shorts real quickly. But anyway guys, thank you so much. I hope you all have a great weekend. Take care, stay safe, and peace.